And he shows up and he's like, hey, we got to team up together. And instead of doing 2 crappy movies, we'll just have 1 big crappy movie together.
Okay,
can't wait for that diarrhea to happen.
This totally kicked the shit out of Cleopatra.
I'm telling you.
As the greatest movie ever.
It's all I could think while I was watching it was, it's Morbin time. I loved it.
There was a point a year or so ago where the greatest film director of all time, Martin Scorsese, declared superhero movies are not real cinema. Mm-hmm. After watching Morbius, he changed his mind.
It's insane. Well, I mean, it makes sense. Did you see how much money this movie made?
200-something trillion, 250 trillion.
Something like that.
260 trillion. That's trillion with a T.
Yeah.
Like and 100 times more than Titanic.
And between that and the ratings, the insane ratings that it got on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, like 200%.
200%.
200% critics, 140% fans, I believe.
Yeah, something like that. So obviously critics liked it a lot more than the fans. But have you ever seen a movie do that well? I didn't even think that was possible.
Well, I mean, that's what happens when every human on Earth goes to see it 10 times.
Which
is not enough, frankly.
I did. 10 times in the theater, and then I've just had it on repeat on Netflix over and over again.
I'm just happy to finally have a Marvel film that has an intelligent storyline, good production values, some emotional pathos to it, and good, proper storytelling. Yeah. And we're joking, of course, because it was a total fucking turd.
It was such garbage. I was about to mention how the CGI was so realistic and well done. Ooh,
all right, if we may be serious.
Everything about this movie. Oh my God.
My first instinct, believe it or not, was to say, I didn't say it. I was going to say it's not the worst Marvel movie I've ever seen.
Okay.
I need to rephrase, because best is, or not the worst isn't the right word. It wasn't the most boring. It wasn't the most boring Marvel movie I've ever seen.
Okay, I can actually give it that. It is not the most boring Marvel movie I've ever seen.
Eternals was. And the worst was Shang-Chi.
Ooh.
But it's in that same company.
Interesting. Now, this movie was made by Sony.
Yeah.
It wasn't really made by, like, the Marvel studio. Like, Kevin Feige, I don't think had anything to do with this. This was all Sony.
Yeah.
You know, the people that love to just ruin everything. Have you seen Fant Four Stick?
Fuck. What caught me more than anything, I looked up the director, some Chilean guy who hasn't done shit.
Oh, good. It's always better when you can get a director who's totally inexperienced and has no idea how to do a big budget film.
Daniel Espinosa. He's done a bunch of stuff in Europe. This is his first time doing a major, large budget blockbuster.
Okay.
Clearly. I was shocked at how much the film looked and sounded like a faux buster.
A faux buster.
You know how they did Battleship?
Yeah.
And then a couple months later, some bullshit B studio released Warship. And it was this crappy Amiga graphics copy.
That's what this reminded
like
you of.
Sharknado, like one of these B movies, these crappy studios that go straight to video. It looked and sounded just like that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not wrong. It had a lot of Sharknado-y type things going on, from the CGI, which was very Sharknado-esque, to just the story that makes no sense. And they don't even try.
Well, no, we'll get to that. I mean, just strictly on production values. The framing of the shots, the angles of the camera positioning, the way it follows, that there's background music playing through the entire thing.
Yes.
Because clearly they got shitty sound recording.
I'll tell you all what
says us with the boom mic standing right. But you understand.
Quit fingering my boom mic.
No. It just looked poorly made, like amateurly made.
I actually want to get a picture of like balls and have it here. So it's just like this hanging ball sack.
Get some truck nuts for it, yeah.
Sweet. I want to talk about the music for just a second, because I'm very much a connoisseur of movie music. I've been listening to it ever since Star Wars first came out, and I understood that the background music was so vital to setting the tone and getting the emotion right of a film. Okay. So when this started out, and it was like the music from Terminator, not even a good one, like the first one from the 70s. So it had this weird 70s music, and then like the Tron graphics showed up, and it was like Morbius, and it was coming at you with goofy lights, and it was really weird. Like
Terminator was 1986, wasn't it?
86?
Yeah.
Was it?
I'm pretty sure it was 85, 86. But I understand what you mean.
70s. But anyway, yeah, it just had that feel and this crappy music, and it never stops. It is constant background noise.
And I think that's because they had shitty sound recording.
So you had to just cover it up with...
The same way they do with those crappy B-made movies, because nobody there... They either don't spend or don't have somebody with the know-how to record sound properly.
See, I actually thought it was them really trying to tap into the 80s somehow, because if you go and watch some of those 80s cartoons that we grew up with, and we loved it, we think about like G.I. Joe and Robotech and all these things that we just love, it's hard to watch because the noise never stops. Yeah. Like that background score, just the whole time, it doesn't shut up. It happened here. It is just constant noise.
I guess it might have been an intentional creative choice. If so, it was a poor one.
Yes.
And if it was a technical fault, then that's fucking inexcusable.
Also, yes.
Either way. So, I only know Morbius from Spider-Man comics.
Me too.
I never read any of his own shit.
I didn't even know he had standalone comics. I thought he was just a Spider-Man villain.
No. Yeah. They've really scraped the bottom at this point. I mean, scraped the bottom. I thought Ant-Man was as low as they could get.
No, it is not, because he can control ants, but this guy can control bats. So he's different, okay?
No, yeah, he's different. I know. Are they that hungry and desperate for content? I guess they are.
And I think even with like a crappy B-lister character, you could still have a good movie if you just wrote a good story, but that does not exist here. You have a villain who makes no sense at all. Like there's no reason or rhyme behind anything that he does.
I mean the Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Milo, the brother, who has the same disease.
He just decides to be a bad guy because he wants to be a bad guy, and then he does bad guy things because that's what bad guys do.
He's bad, yeah.
There's nothing there that actually motivates him to do any of these things.
I did notice because of that, specifically because of Milo, Doctor Who. Also Daemon Targaryen in the House of Dragon.
Sweet.
It was maybe the most predictable, formulaic Marvel movie I've ever seen. Like, Green Lantern has the yellow guy, who's just like him, except he's evil and he's yellow.
Okay.
Superman has Bizarro, who's just like him, but his costume is different and he's evil. And Wonder Woman has the cheetah bitch, who's just like her, but she's evil and she dresses like...
Yeah.
From the beginning, instantly I knew, okay, he's going to be the evil vampire. And it followed, okay, here's his origin. He's downtrodden and something happens and he gets superpowers, and now he has to... blah, blah, blah. They didn't divert from that formula even a tiny little bit.
No, they did not.
I don't know if that was them trying to play it safe or just Sony saying, oh my God, we fucked up so many of these movies. Just stick to a fucking formula that works. Just show his origin, he gets powers, he fights. Done.
How does he get powers again? Bats make him a vampire. How does that work? It doesn't matter. Just do it. It cures his blood disease. What blood disease? It doesn't matter. It makes him crippled and he's got to walk all funny. Is it killing him? I don't know. Does he have so long to live? No, he's had it for like 25 years, so he's probably fine. Are we in a hurry? No.
Could we change the dialogue where he says bats produce this enzyme that stops blood from coagulating? Because we already have those drugs. And millions of people use them every fucking day. Could we use a tiny little bit of creativity?
I'll let you put in that one line. But don't linger on it. Just like say it really fast in pure exposition and move on.
By the way, what is this?
What is what?
Behind us? But behind it, what is that?
Oh, it's Dracula's castle.
It's made of fucking Legos.
Yes, that's the only one I could find.
It looks like
I was in a hurry. I just typed in Dracula's castle. I couldn't find one, then I found this, and it said Dracula's castle, so I took it.
Did you type in Lego?
No,
I just. Why did it get? Oh, you know what? For this, it's.
I didn't even notice it was Lego until I put it on there, and I was like, "Oh man, that's all Lego." You know what? No one will notice. Now you pointed it out.
So this very first scene. Oh, no, it's not the first. The one we're watching now. I'm going to do these quasi-legal experiments. Okay, but it's illegal, so we better take a boat into international waters. Okay, you couldn't just go to like a South American country or an Asian country where it's take a boat. Okay, also we're gonna need like 30 hired armed to the teeth mercenaries.
What was that
on this science mission? Why? Because
so there, and I actually remember this. There were 8 guys on this boat. Just 8 of them.
Looking like they're going to war.
Looking like they were going to war. All 8 of them armed with automatic rifles. Why? I don't know. They're mercenaries. So, did you have like a ship's cook? Did you have anybody who could steer the ship? Was there anybody? So, all those guys were armed. Every one of them. I mean, I guess if Steven Seagal can be a cook, then I guess...
I'm a porter, not a busboy. No thought went into any of this.
That's what it is. It's no thought went into it, no forethought.
It's just, we have a formula, just fill in these blanks.
And nobody wrote this story. A group of people just agreed on a bunch of ideas. And then they string the ideas together and they go, that's a Morbius.
Yeah.
Which is what I expect from Disney's Marvel right now. I expect that's how they write all their stories. There is no actual writer. It's just a bunch of ideas that you string together. Yeah. So to have the same thing come out of Sony, it's like, were you guys not trying either? Or
it's interesting. I wonder. I would love to go back. I'm not going to do this now. It's too much work. But some geek will look up the writers of all of these movies. How many of them started off as comic book writers? I'm going to bet it's almost 0.
Probably.
I bet it's almost 0. And I think you just get a bunch of executives sitting in a room saying, all right, our next production is Marvel character Morbius. All right, what do we know about Morbius? He's a doctor. Okay. Nobel Prize winner. Great. He's born in Greece with some weird blood disorder thing. Okay. What else? His friend Milo is sick too. Yeah. What else? Vampires. Okay. Bats. Yeah. All right. Give me a scene with bats. Give me a scene with Milo. Give me a scene him doing experiment stuff and sprinkling some gunfights in between. Beautiful. Let's go to work.
We got a movie. We're done.
Rather than a writer sitting down and coming up with a character and developing it and fleshing it out and giving him an arc and using 3-act structure. It's just this fucking diarrhea-thon instead.
Yes.
This lazy as fuck. Not even Al Madrigal, one of my favorite comedians, was able to save this shit.
And then at the very, very end, for the post-credit scene, you have Michael Keaton show up as Vulture. Sure, okay. And he shows up and he's like, hey, we got to team up together. And instead of doing 2 crappy movies, we'll just have one big crappy movie together.
Okay,
can't wait for that diarrhea to happen.
Just so much wasted potential. You have Jared Harris, for fuck's sake. One of the greatest living actors in the world. I get it. It reminds me of what William H. Macy said. Yeah. One time when I asked him, you did the knit cap. You've done all this incredible stuff. Why are you doing Jurassic Park? And he was like, hey, man, I got mortgage to pay, too. Sometimes I have to do the bullshit to make enough money so that I can do the knit cap. I'm like, oh, okay.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm fine with that. As long as they can acknowledge it, they know.
This was just awful. Just so awful.
Well, I'd love to know your comments, but I already know what they are. So I don't even know what you'd comment other than just, yeah, it sucked. Bullshit.
Give us your top 3 reasons why this was the best movie ever made.
Yes, that's what I want to know. What made you Morbin love this movie?
list your top 3 Oscar predictions. What it's definite going to get, most likely going to get, and then long shot for an Oscar, but still should get.
Right. And something that if it loses, you're going to be pissed.
Yeah.
How could it not win that?
I would say Best Picture.
Yeah, obviously.
Best script best original script, and best musical score.
It's
best editing.
It's a tie between best musical score and best special effects.
It's just excellent in all of those. This might be the clean sweep at the Oscars this year.
It might be. It
should be, if there's any justice in Hollywood.
If it's not,
which is run by the Jews.
And if it doesn't win,
you know who to blame.
It's because of racism.
More on that topic coming up.
All right.
That's a good setup. That's a good lead.
All right, click subscribes and all that shit. And
we're not really anti-Semitic. It's a setup a joke that's coming up later on.
Yeah, what he said. See you in another episode. Later.
Oh, God.